All right. So that's pretty much the base gist on hashes for now. Next thing we want to look at is we'll talk a little bit more about control and a few things we can do there. I think we've talked a lot about how we can do if then else, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. We did while loops, so I'll move on a little bit further. Let's go to methods. So we can define methods, right? So far we have done pretty much nothing really important with Ruby. We've talked about all the basic low-level stuff that you can do, so let's actually define how we can actually create a method. And so we'll call this ex8.rb. And so creating a method is really easy. The basic syntax is we use the keyword def, and so we call them, some languages call these functions, some call it methods, some say methods can only be inside objects. In reality, when you write a script in Ruby, you're actually inside of a special class that is holding that script. We're not going to get too deep into that, but we can create a method by using def, and let's just say that Ruby calls all functions methods. So we can create this method. We'll call it say goodnight. So I don't know if you ever watched a really horrible show from back in the 90s called The Waltons. But anyway, at the very end of the show, everyone had to say goodnight because it's the bunch of people living in this house in the middle of the sticks during the Depression. But anyway, so the result of calling this is to say goodnight, and then whoever the name is, right? So everyone says good night to everyone else. Now we can explicitly return a result here. And so oh yes, the basic syntax: def, name of the method, arguments. Now the argument list can be in parentheses or not. It's not required. And then we say end. Okay. So then we can say we'll say put say goodnight, and then John Boy was the main character, and then we could call another one say goodnight Mary Ellen, one of his sisters, and then at the very end they always said and good night grandma. Okay. Anyway, so we go ahead and we'll run this just to validate that this actually works, and then we're going to make a few modifications just to see that there are other ways of doing this. And as expected, it says good night John Boy, good night Mary Ellen, and good night grandma. Okay, so it looks great. Now, interesting enough with Ruby, the last statement that executes inside of a method, if there's no explicit return, is the return value. So we can remove all that extra business, and we'll just have it create this string, and that string being the last line of the method will be the return value. So if we go ahead and run this, we see the exact same thing. Alright, so excellent. We did a lot of good work there. Now we can make a few more modifications, right? Just to make this more Ruby-esque, if you will, by using string interpolation. And we'll add in one more, so we say puts say good night, and then we'll do it just to validate that we can do it this way, and we'll make it a single. Yeah. All right. So we can do it all different ways, and we run this, and we say good night Paw gets added in there. So that's looking good. And so this is the pretty much the most Ruby-esque way you can write a function. So that being said, alright, functions are really useful, and then we can add in some extra capability to these things. Alright, so, or methods, whatever you want to call them, and this extra functionality that we can add in. So this would be functionality that's a part of the method, but defined outside of the method. It's kind of a trip the first time you do it, and it's called a block. And so we'll call this ex9.rb, and so blocks are just like in Java. A block of code is created by defining it with curly braces. It's not the only way, but we can say puts hello. Alright, so that's a block. If we run this, it will run that block of code. Actually, it will give me a failure. That's interesting. Hello, 9, thank you. So let's I actually probably have to use that somewhere. So let's say do, and then we'll say puts hello and end. Hopefully that does not fail. It may. We'll find out. Also fails. All right, good times. So how about we say screw all that, and then here's what we do. Let's define a method. We'll call it call block, and we'll say puts start of method. This will make it a little easier. We already seen blocks being used when we did iteration the each method earlier. We can execute these things, right? So let's say puts and then end of method, right? This is really simple way of understanding how this thing works. So blocks work. Note that there is no arguments to this method. We could even put empty parentheses on here, right? It's not required, but we can do it. So if we can call this, we say call block, right? Run this. Says start of method, end of method. Now we can add in some extra code. Maybe we want to say call block and we give it a block. Puts in the block, right? So if we did that, we expect to see something maybe change, but we still see the same. Now what we need to do is there's a special keyword that happens that allows us to actually execute any blocks that come in. And so we say yield, and what yield will do is it says yield to the incoming block. And so when we run this, we say call block, and then it says start of method, then we call yield, and then it says, oh, do whatever's in the block provided. So the block provided said puts in the block, so it prints in the block, and then we see end of method. All right, pretty easy thing, no big deal, right? Okay, we could also furthermore say yield again, and then maybe throw and try it one more time, and it runs it twice. Okay, so we see that's great. All right, we could also do this with a do end. I'll just do that one more time. So do, and then I probably should get rid of that end there, and then we say end. All right, looks good. Run that, same thing. So you can do that just the exact way we want to. So let's create another one. We can also have parameters to our block, right? So we can say def call block 2, and then we'll just yield here. And then inside the yield we'll say hello and 99. All right. And so when we call this, we'll say call block 2, and then we'll say do, and we have a string and a number that we care about, and then we'll say puts str, and then how much, and we'll say $$ pound num, right? End. So we do that, and we run this, and it gives us exactly what we want to see. It says hello, a hello cost apparently, or hello, how much? $99. All right. We could have done that easily with a single line block using the the curly brace syntax as well, and it works the same. So then that brings us back to understanding iterators, right? So anytime we have any type of a data type or construct, or even an object or a class that you define later in your life that has an each method, and each takes a block. So let's say we have some array with cat, dog, and horse. Apparently these are common animals that we care about. We say dot each, and then we say do and name, and then we can say print name, comma, space, and then end, and we'll do a puts empty line. All right, go ahead and run this, and literally it just prints out each item in there. So you can easily adjust this to do whatever you want. So we saw this when we were opened up a file and then looked at each line earlier. We can also do this with ranges as well as, and then we also saw, for example, we worked with 5.times, right? That takes in a block. It's a method that takes a block. That's all it is. We said print, let's say print star, right? And then let's say 3 dot up to 6, and we'll take in an I, and we'll print I, and then we can also do ranges, and we'll talk about ranges shortly here. We'll say A through E dot each char, and then print char, right? And then we'll put to get the new line. If we run this, we should see 5 stars followed by 3, 4, 5, 6 followed by A through E. And that's exactly what we get. So these are just ways of understanding how blocks and why we can use them. So we can make our own methods that do the exact same thing. And that's kind of the Ruby-esque way of doing stuff. So then I wanted to work with a few things. One more, just a few more examples, and then we'll be done. So example, we'll call this 10.rb. And this is just simply working with the gets, right? So let's say we want to print triangle height, right? We want the height of a triangle. So we would say h is our height, and now we want so gets. And as before, I told you gets a string, right? String input from the user. Well, we want this to be turned into actual numbers, so we're going to say 2, and we want it to be a floating point, so f. So that's will give us the height of the triangle as a floating point. So maybe we say print triangle width, right? And this we say w equals gets dot 2f, and then we'll claim that the area of a triangle is equal to 0.5 times the height times the width. All right. Now that we've done that, we can then print. I'll say puts triangle height pound h width pound w, and its area let's say colon has area, and then area, right? So that should give us a pretty slick and easy deal to understand. So we say example 10, the height, let's say, I don't know, 5, and the width 10, so has a height of 5.0, width of 10.0, and has an area of 25, right? Because the height is half the height, 2.5 times the width, 10, 25. All right, simple math, simple thing to easily understand. Note that it is all floating point, right, as we expected. If we did this as an I, instead we get a possibly slightly different answer. So we say 5, 10, now we will expect 25. What do we get? 25, right? Because Ruby will automatically